it's Angela again here at the Chicken Coop, and I'm back out in my greenhouse today. Yay! It's springtime. It's getting wonderful in here. And let's see, temperature's like 82 degrees, so it's perfect. So this is what the kind of things that I start doing before I can plant outside and do things outside, is I start working in my greenhouse and cleaning up plants that I've been storing in here through the winter. When you have a greenhouse, and I don't keep my greenhouse heated. This is not like a commercial greenhouse that this is staying like 75 degrees and the good humidity and all that kind of stuff. This is just a greenhouse that I can store my plants and not have them freeze during the winter. I do have supplemental heat, but we really just use it to keep it above freezing. So, if we could keep it in the evenings 45, 50, something like that degrees, we're doing good. In the daytime, depending on how cold it is, like today, it's 82 degrees in here, so that's good. All right, so this plant here, this is called, it's an aloe in the aloe family. And it's called a Candelabra Aloe. And it looks kind of rough right now, but this is really a pretty plant. Here. So what I'm going to do is try to pick out some of these old stems and stuff that don't look so good. And these leaves, I may have to work at it as I do some propagating in here to get down in here. But this thing has gone crazy. And it's going to be really in good shape. I have lots of new babies in here. The thing about this plant is, how like most aloe vera, it grows big and then it wants to flop over. This has actually a pretty good, thick, hardy structure. And I think that's why they call it that Candelabra Aloe, is because it stands up so well. And so it took me forever to find the name of this one too. It's kind of one of those plants that I had that I didn't know I bought somewhere, but I didn't know what it actually was. And then I finally found the name of it. And it's very much segmented. But I have cut this thing back and propagated on it tons and tons of times. And it is a little rougher. The spines aren't like, they don't have needles per se, but they're pokier than just a regular aloe vera plant. So let me see what I'm going to do. I've got some babies and stuff down here that look like they might need to be come out, but I also probably need to cut this back a little bit because it is just going crazy. All right, so we're just going to cut this off then. And this will not hurt this plant at all. It will go just crazy after this. Lots of leaves down here. So let me get this stuff all cleaned off, and then we'll get back to it. I'll show you what the next steps of stuff this is. Okay, let me get this all cleaned off. Y'all don't know what's been going on behind the scenes. I finally had to call my son in here to help me get this out of the pot. I've been trying to pull on it and tug on it and cut on it, and I've used my my bread knife. This is a handy tool in a greenhouse, I'm telling you. I went down to just my local thrift store bought a bread knife. Has serrated edges. It is wonderful for cutting plants in half. But anyways, I was using that because I didn't want to break my clay pot. It's a good clay pot. And I was using it to go around the edges to try to loosen it up. And I kept trying to pull myself, and it just wasn't working. And believe it or not, y'all, I had transplanted this plant last year. And it is gone crazy in this pot. And it is so root bound. Look at it. So root bound. These it's just a mass of roots in here. So these are encircling the plant, and so I'm just cutting them off. And people worry about that. You know, they think that plants are so delicate. If you've got a plant that can grow like this, that's indestructible, that's going to grow this kind of crazy in one season, you ain't gonna hurt this plant. Don't worry about it. You can cut the roots off and everything, and you ain't gonna hurt this plant. All right. So now I can kind of better see what I got going on here. I may not be able to do anything with it, but I can see a little bit better. So, all right. So there was a cut in here I was making, so I'm gonna finish this cut up here. I mean, this is just solid. So I really can't see what I'm cutting through, but I'm just cutting through it. It is just solid. Root mass. Okay, this is what I wanted to be able to do. I'm getting some of these little ones off of here. There's a thick root right there that does not want to come off. All right, I'm just going to chunk all that root. I have a little pot down here that I take to my compost pile and this has just used up all the soil that was ever even in here for it to grow in. It has used it up. Yeah, I think I got it. Okay. So I'm just separating these out. Don't ever tell me gardening's for sissies. You get a workout sometimes. It's not wanting to come apart. There it goes. You can see this was one of the original stems, how thick it is and everything. Look how many babies I'm going to have. Sometimes you have to do this. I know people don't want to do this, but sometimes you have to sacrifice when the plant is just getting where you can't even take care of it anymore because it's just so crazy, is separate these babies off, start you some new plants, and you know, sometimes you can't even keep the old plants. You just need to get rid of it. It's time to toss it. I may do that on some of these. Like this one looks pretty good. I'd probably keep that one, and I've cut it off, and what'll happen is where I've cut this off, this will branch. It'll branch off, and you'll get a big thick plant from that. That's one of the original stems, you can see. And you can actually see where I have cut it off before. That's an old cut right here, down in here. And look, it's produced all sorts more babies off of that branch. Oh my gosh, we're going to have tons of these things. Now, all of this dirt, sometimes I reuse and add to my new potting soil, but this dirt or soil is completely used up. There's no more added nutrients or anything to this, so it's done for. So I'm going to put this in my compost bucket here. But my compost bucket. Yes, that would all out in my compost bucket. I'm going to pick out some of these bigger, these are big pots, some of these bigger pieces like this to put in here. Okay. Okay. Make a hole. Maybe put 2 down in here. Now this is regular potting soil that I get from Lowe's or wherever. I don't have a specific potting soil, but it wasn't too bad. But what some of the things that I do to my potting soil when I use it, I used to have a worm farm, and I have a whole tub of worm castings down in here. Y'all have seen me do a video on grinding up my eggshells for the garden, but I also use it in my potting soil. I have a huge tub here full of ground eggshells that I also added to my potting soil. I had a bag of vermiculite that I've also added to my potting soil. So there's 2 different ways you can see here to propagate this plant. There is division and then taking cuttings. And this is what I'm doing here. I've done both. I've done division and taking cuttings. Oh, I didn't even put any root hormone on these because these already had the roots on it. But you could, if you wanted to sprinkle a little bit of rooting hormone on here, you could do that as well. Okay. Looks pretty good. I didn't fill these pots all the way up with soil because I knew I was going to have to move the soil around and bury these a little deep with these limbs and roots on them. Alright, so let me finish these up, and then I'll get back with you and I'll show you how to do it with the cuttings. Alright, I'm back. So, what I'm going to do is, some of these old stems are not real pretty. They're not looking so good. So I really am just going to chunk them. I'm going to kind of start over with new plant. I am going to keep these 3, this little trio. I think they will be a good start. Actually, I'm going to cut this leaf off right here. And I'm going to bury these kind of deep and let this one start again. This is going to be kind of my mother plant again. Or sometimes when you have to get a big, these are from a feed store. These are cattle feed scoops. These make wonderful tools in your greenhouse. I need to do a video on just tools for your greenhouse that you can use that you might not think about using as tools in your greenhouse. Yeah, I need to do a video on that. I'll bury that really far down. Try to kind of cover up a lot of this stem. And then this one. Get it in here. Have roots, so I'm not using any rooting hormone because this is rooted stuff here. And this potting soil is kind of moist already. These needed a good drink, but I don't think I'm going to water it. It's, you know, it is a succulent, so it doesn't take a lot of water. Okay, so this is my new mother plant, and it's just going to go crazy. All these places that I've cut are going to branch out more, and I'm going to have more, and then of course they'll start putting on some side shoots and everything on here, so it'll be great. I got 4 of those other ones together that I had potted. I got 4 of these, and now I'm going to work on the ones that are cuttings off of the plant. I'll do these as a 45-degree angle, get any old yucky roots and leaves off, that kind of thing. Kind of clean these up. Pull off some of these lower limbs when the little stem is kind of short. Look how many of these I'm going to have. Alright, so this doesn't have very much, but I'm going to, you know, no plant left behind. So any of those ones that I feel like, I don't know about that, I'm kind of setting those aside, and I'll put them in a different little container. And these are kind of oozing because it is an aloe vera, but it doesn't ooze like the aloe vera that you use for burns and things. It's not that type of aloe vera, but it does have that same aloe vera property. So it is oozing a little, but not as much as a normal one would be. Okay, so now these are these big ones that I cut off. So I'm going to remove these segments at the bottom. So just so that I have a taller stem to work with. Alright. So that'll be kind of good there. I'm going to cut this at an angle. This is probably going to be thick. So 45-degree angle cut. Pull some of these lower segment leaves off. This is a 45 as well. And you're probably thinking, well, what are you going to do with all these plants? Okay. I give a lot of them away. I'm in garden club. We do fundraisers. But that is one of the things that I may do since I am retired, is get my license to sell plants and propagate and sell plants, because I love to do this. To me, and you know why I love it? Number 1, I like plants. But number 2, I feel like I'm getting a deal because I'm not having to pay for this. I'm so cheap, y'all, so penny and so frugal, that this is what I feel like. I feel like I'm saving money, because look how many plants I am going to get out of this one plant that I had. And there are people that are very intimidated by this propagation process, and it is not hard. Of course, I will say there are plants out there that are hard. There are plants that to grow them from seed is hard. There are plants that to grow them from cuttings is hard. I don't have those type plants. I don't pick stuff that's real hard, but a lot of people just don't know how to do this, and so they don't. They don't have anything, or they don't care anything about it. They don't have the facilities to do this, so they just don't want to mess with it. So that's where the greenhouses come into play. And I buy lots of stuff. I'm not knocking greenhouses. It's a great industry. But why pay? That one's got a little bit of root on it, so I'm setting that aside for a different. Now, Let me get some of this trash out of here. I have a lot of these little teeny tiny ones that were in this plant too. And I don't know that they will make it. But what I'm going to do is all these little teeny tiny ones, I'll plant several of them in one pot and just see how they do. They may make it, they may not, but you know what? Why not give them a little try? Don't give up on your plants. Especially with a little rooting hormone on here. You don't know what they might do. What they might could accomplish with a little bit of. See how little tiny these are? These were just starting. But I'm gonna keep them to see what we can do with them. So now I know what I'm working with. Alright, so all these were the ones that had cuttings. So I'm gonna get my rooting hormone here. You might not be able to see this. I just used the lid and I'm just gonna coat this with some rooting hormone. So I'm just gonna go through here and coat them with the rooting hormone. Lay them in my tray. And also this lets them, kind of gives them time. They've kind of just about stopped weeping. Now there's some big ones in here and some little ones in here. These big ones, if I put them in a really small little container, they're just gonna flop over. And so I'm gonna probably do 2 different sizes of containers depending on the size of these little aloe vera. Alright, I don't know if y'all can see this, but I have a tray of potting soil and planting in here. The stems are pretty tough, so you can just stick them down in there. That's what I want to do, because these are working really good, just sticking them down in there. And there are people that'll tell you with succulents that you need to let them, you know, scar over for 24 hours, and you know, sometimes even 48 hours they might say. But listen, I'm not going to water these. These don't have any roots. Don't go planting your succulents and then water them right away. This soil is kind of moist anyways, so it's moist enough to so that your roots stay damp, but not so moist that it's going to have root rot. So I didn't keep these out of, you know, let them sit there and dry for hours and hours and hours. I'm going to stick them in there and see how they do. Alright, so these were a little bit of the smaller ones, so and that's why I chose these little bit smaller cups. This is as simple as it gets, people. I'm going to kind of, it's good. So I will put this on one of my shelves in here. I have very opaque roof, so they don't get bright sunlight or anything, and let them do their thing. One tray down, yay! I'm back again. Believe it or not, I had to go down and get some more potting soil, so I had to do that. So I finished those containers there that I was working on. I got 5 containers about this size of that candelabra cactus. I got 1 tray of the small, and I still have some more, so I've filled up a few bigger pots here, and we'll put them in here. Stick these, and y'all, this is just so simple. All right, so I cleaned off all the bottoms, cut them at a 45-degree angle, and put some rooting hormone on here. So I'm going to put 2 in a container, I think. I think I've got enough for 2. I think I do. Actually, I have 2 big ones that I'm going to put in singularly. And these other smaller ones I'm going to put in. That one I'm going to put in singularly. Alright. So, on this one, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 that I put in. 1 plant a piece. And then 2, I had 2 small ones that I put 2 in there a piece. So I've got quite a bit of these off that 1 plant. This is how you double your plants, y'all. I know you're probably not trying to work on getting a nursery going or anything, and I'm not really either, though that may be one of my little goals that I have, is to do that. I love to propagate.